They asked for peace. But humans remembered the first slaughter is the title of the story. In this story we discuss after a devastating first contact that left Earth in ruins, humanity rebuilt with steel and fury. Decades later, the alien Serathi returned, not with weapons, but with an offer of peace. Admiral Elena Voss, forged in the fires of the first slaughter, must decide if trust is worth the risk. But when buried transmissions and covert betrayals come to light, the illusion of reconciliation shatters. As the Serathi prepare to strike from the shadows, humanity responds not with forgiveness, but finality. In a galaxy that remembers silence more than truth, peace is just another battlefield, and memory never dies quietly. The sky over New Jakarta burned violet and orange, a surreal aurora that shimmered in the ash-choked air. Elena Voss stood ankle-deep in rubble, blood trickling down her cheek, dust clinging to her lashes. Around her, the cries of the dying merged with the mechanical whine of orbital drones still scanning for survivors. She had never seen war before today. Not like this. 2 hours ago, she'd been sipping coffee in her dorm at the academy. Then the alarm shrieked, the ground trembled, and the world collapsed. The Serathi hadn't announced themselves. They hadn't sent demands or warnings. They descended with sterile precision, vaporizing defense satellites and dropping kinetic rods into major cities like divine hammers. By the time the Terran Council understood what was happening, 6 capitals had already vanished. Elena had seen the first impact from a shuttle window, a flash of impossible white, followed by the slow, monstrous bloom of an energy cloud rising over Jakarta. She couldn't hear the screams, but she imagined them. Everyone could. The pilot was sobbing. One of the cadets vomited in his seat. Elena had simply gripped the harness until her knuckles went white, already grieving. Now, standing in the broken harbor city, she watched the Serathi strike cruiser drift above like a shark in still water, its hull pulsed with bioluminescence, smooth and organic, utterly alien. It didn't fire. It didn't need to. The damage was done. Fires painted every horizon. Skyscrapers lay like corpses. Somewhere below the rubble was her sister's bakery, reduced to cinders. A child staggered from behind a half-collapsed wall, barefoot, soot-smeared, holding the limp hand of his mother, whose skull was a ruin. Elena moved without thinking, lifting the boy into her arms, her breath shaking. The comm unit in her ear buzzed. This is command. All survivors converge at Sector 7 Tango. Evac in 20 minutes. Hostile presence confirmed en route. 20 minutes. Not enough. But she turned her eyes from the ruin and ran, the child cradled close. The weight of him, light but human, grounded her rage. They didn't come for conquest. They came to destroy, to remind humanity of its fragility. The evacuation site was chaos. Shattered vehicles, makeshift triage tents, sobbing soldiers. Captain Reza, Elena's instructor, spotted her through the smoke and ran to help carry the boy. His face was gray beneath the grime. "Elena," he rasped, "you weren't supposed to be here." "I know," she whispered. Neither was he. The gunships arrived under cover of night. Engines roared as they lifted the last survivors away. From the sky, Elena looked down on what used to be home. She saw the Serathi ship turn, discharge a final beam into the earth that carved a glowing, molten scar across the landscape, as if erasing a name. That was the day humanity changed. In the weeks that followed, the Terran Accord was forged, not out of hope but necessity. Old rivalries dissolved in silence. Earth needed to survive, and to do that, they had to remember. They had to become something the Serathi would think twice before attacking again. Elena never returned to Jakarta. Years passed, and she rose through the ranks like a fire through dry forest. Tactical genius, they said, unbreakable nerve. She stopped correcting them. She stopped sleeping properly, too. Nightmares were a constant now. Walls melting, ash falling like snow. Her sister's voice cut off mid-sentence. They gave her command of the dreadnought Gloria Noctis on her 32nd birthday. No celebration, just a transmission from high command. "We trust your judgment, Admiral Voss." Now she drifted above Europa in orbit, the scars of war stitched into her very bones. Below, Human colonies glowed with the quiet light of resilience. The Serathi hadn't attacked in 15 years. Until today. The signal came through as a tightly encrypted burst. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a demand. It was an invitation. Elena listened to the translation 3 times. We regret the fire that was. We seek peace. Let us talk. Let the silence between us end. She said nothing for a long time. On the screen, her reflection flickered against the stars. The woman she saw wasn't the cadet who had once wept in the dark, or the sister who used to knead bread with cinnamon. This woman was carved from loss. And the Serathi were asking her to forget. She turned to her second-in-command, a weathered officer named Lau who'd lost his entire family in the first wave. "Prepare a response," she said. "Yes, Admiral." "What message?" Elena's eyes didn't move from the stars. "Tell them peace is a beautiful word." She paused. Her voice dropped. "But we remember the first slaughter. Ask ChatGPT." The Serathi delegation arrived in a vessel shaped like a silver tear, gliding through space without visible propulsion, escorted by 4 Terran warships with weapons primed. Protocol demanded restraint. But the gun crews aboard Gloria and Noctis had fingers near triggers, and no one on Admiral Elena Voss's bridge pretended this meeting was anything less than a calculated risk. The docking bay was cold, cavernous, bathed in sterilizing blue light. Human soldiers lined the walls in matte black exosuits, visors down, weapons shouldered. Elena stood at the center, motionless, her expression unreadable beneath the weight of 2 decades of loss. Beside her, Lau murmured a quiet prayer in Cantonese. Neither of them believed the Serathi were here out of remorse. When the alien vessel sealed with the station, it exhaled a soft hiss, like breath held too long. The Serathi emerged in threes, tall, bone-white beings with no mouths, their translucent skin flickering with iridescent veins. They wore ceremonial robes, not armor. One stepped forward, its voice projected through a vocalizer fused to its collar. "We come not in triumph, but in memory. We regret the harm brought by the silence." Elena's voice cut clean through the chamber. "You mean the genocide?" A pause followed, not of hesitation, but calculation. "Our ancestors misjudged the pattern of your kind. What began in fear ended in flame." She studied the alien's face, if it could be called that. Smooth, emotionless. No eyes, only a shimmering slit that twitched as it processed her words. "You burned 6 cities before the Terran Accord even held its first meeting. There was no war, just slaughter. We seek atonement," the Serathi replied. "And why now?" Lau asked, stepping forward. "Why not 10 years ago? 15? Our world has changed, as has yours. Peace is survival. Let this be our reconciliation." A flicker of unease passed through the human ranks. The Serathi were not pleading. They were offering peace like a transaction, calculated, timed, perhaps rehearsed. Elena gestured toward a nearby holopad. It bloomed into a projection. Earth during the initial invasion. Civilian footage. Screams. Fire. Children running through streets paved in ash. "This is the memory you must answer," she said. "We're not here because we trust you. We're here to hear why we shouldn't reduce your fleet to debris." The Serathi leader bowed its elongated head. "Then let memory guide this dialogue. But let it not be the only voice." Elena didn't respond. She turned and walked, the sound of her boots echoing across the bay. The delegation followed in silence toward the diplomatic chamber. Inside, the tone shifted. Around a circular table, human analysts, translators, and defense officials took their places. Serathi envoys seated themselves opposite, with eerie precision. Holoscreens flickered to life. The negotiation began. They spoke of reparations, rare minerals, agricultural tech, bioregenerative nanites. They spoke of joint research stations, cultural exchanges, and military disengagement zones. The Serathi even offered to dismantle their outer defense grid as a sign of good faith. Lau leaned close and whispered, "They're offering too much." Elena nodded slowly. Desperate or deceptive. Either way, it reeks. Between rounds of dialogue, she studied their body language. There were no twitches of uncertainty, no visible emotion. Yet now and then, a slight pulsing in their throats betrayed tension. "Why should we believe this change is genuine?" she asked at last. "You say your society has changed. Prove it. Let me speak to someone who remembers what you did." The leader inclined its head. "Our living memory is held in the Speaker of Stone. You may speak with her." Hours later, aboard the Serathi vessel under close escort, Elena entered a chamber lined in obsidian walls that shimmered like water. In the center sat a withered Serathi, older, hunched, with thousands of fine crystalline tubes running from her spine into the floor. "You carry the echo of the lost," the speaker said in a voice so faint it barely reached Elena's ears. "I carry more than echoes. I carry the names of the dead." "Then you understand. We too carry names. Different, but no less heavy." Elena narrowed her eyes. "Your kind started the fire." "Yes, and fire leaves behind ash. But ash feeds the soil, does it not?" "I'm not here for poetry." "No," the speaker said. "You are here to decide if the blood we offer now balances the blood we once spilled." Outside the chamber, in the dark expanse of space, Terran scouts intercepted a faint signal, a buried frequency pulsing beneath the Serathi peace transmission. It was encrypted, but the cadence mirrored old wartime command lines. Lau brought it to Elena's quarters. She stared at the waveform, unmoving. "What is it?" he asked. "Possibly nothing," she said. "Or it's a whisper they didn't mean for us to hear." Lau exhaled. "What now?" "We give them time," she said. "Time to show whether peace is a gift or a trick." She stepped to the viewport, looking toward the alien vessel. "Either way," she murmured, "they'll learn we haven't forgotten how to bleed." Ask ChatGPT. The message was hidden in a pulse, a subharmonic whisper layered beneath the Serathi peace transmission. It took Earth's cryptographers 40 hours to isolate and decrypt it. What they found wasn't a weapon command or a tactical signal. It was worse. It was a list. Coordinates. Human settlements across 3 colonies, marked with a Serathi designation, once translated as pre-cleansing zones. Admiral Elena Voss didn't speak when Lau handed her the datapad. She merely stared, jaw-locked, the glow from the screen etching sharper lines into her face. Around her, the bridge of Gloria Noctis seemed to hold its breath. Could it be outdated? Lau offered. "Archive wartime protocol." "It came with the peace signal," Elena replied. "That's not a mistake. That's a memory they hoped we wouldn't share." She rose from her command chair and strode toward the situation map. Red dots pulsed where the Serathi had once planned to strike next. Places where survivors now lived, where children played in parks rebuilt from rubble. The names weren't coordinates to her. They were promises. "We bring this to command?" Lau asked. "Not yet. Not until I understand why they sent it." In secret, she summoned the Serathi diplomat, the same being who had stood in the docking bay with calm platitudes and downturned eyes. It arrived without guards, unarmed, draped in ivory cloth that shimmered like bone under the chamber lights. "You said your kind regretted the silence," Elena began. "That peace was your only aim. That remains true. Then explain this." She tossed the datapad onto the table. It spun once, then stilled. The Serathi's glow dimmed subtly. "These are echoes," it said. "Remnants of an ideology purged long ago. The signal was not meant for you. It was residual." "Residual?" Elena's voice was iron. "You call death plans for human colonies residual?" The Serathi remained still. "We cannot deny our past. But those orders no longer carry force. The minds that birthed them are ash. That didn't stop the outpost at Trien Delta from being annihilated last week." A pause. The Serathi did not blink, did not breathe. That was unauthorized. "So you're telling me you've lost control?" "No," it said. "We are evolving." Her fists tightened. "Then evolve faster. Because if even one more human settlement burns, there will be no more dialogue. There will be war, your final one." After the Serathi left, Lau stepped from the shadows. "They're lying," he said. "I know," she replied. "What do we do?" Elena turned toward the main viewport. Beyond it, stars stretched endlessly, indifferent and cold. We make preparations. The plan was buried deep in the Accord's emergency protocol, Operation Mirror Flame, a retaliatory sequence designed not just to defend, but to end. It was meant to be theoretical, a bluff, but Elena ordered it activated. Across human space, dreadnoughts emerged from dark space. Supply lines rerouted to shadow fleets. Covert agents already embedded in Serathi control systems began transmitting back raw intelligence. One of them, operating under the code name Sharon, sent a final encrypted burst before going dark. Confirmed, Serathi high caste split, peace faction undermined, militarist doctrine rising, orders contradicting diplomatic channels, recommend immediate readiness. The message ended mid-sentence. That night, Elena sat alone in her quarters, staring at a small hollow frame. It showed a young girl with flower-streaked cheeks and a crooked smile, her sister, Mara, from years before the silence. The image flickered gently. She touched it once, then let the light fade. Peace. What a fragile, beautiful lie. In the briefing room the next morning, her senior officers gathered around a projection of the Serathi homeworld, Saren, a planet of oceans and glassy ridges that shimmered like frozen thunderclouds. It was distant, but not unreachable. We don't strike first, Elena said. Not yet, but we will be ready. Lau studied the map. If they launch, they won't be allowed to finish, she said. One of the junior tacticians, Voss, fresh from Mars Fleet Academy, shifted nervously. And if the peace faction is sincere, then they will have a chance to stop their own war. But we won't wait for another Jakarta. The mood in the room was cold resolve. Every officer had buried someone. None argued. Later that day, Elena stood in the observation deck as the Gloria Noctis turned to face the outer fringe of Serathi space. The stars looked different now, less like possibilities, more like thresholds. A new transmission arrived. It wasn't from the Serathi envoy. It came from a civilian channel. Hacked, repurposed, raw. A Serathi voice, younger, shaken. No titles. No decorum. To any who hear, this peace is not real. The war never ended. They just changed the shape of it. Help us stop them before it begins again. Elena played it 3 times, then closed the file. When she turned to Lau, her voice was low. Find the origin of that signal. We're going in. The Serathi outpost was built into the hollowed side of an asteroid, its architecture seamless with the stone, like veins of crystal running through bone. From orbit, it shimmered faintly against the dark. From within, it pulsed with encoded malice. Admiral Elena Voss stood at the center of Gloria Noctis' command deck, watching as the final pieces of the operation slotted into place. Cloaked vessels took flanking positions. Planetary communications across Serathi territory were being jammed. A dozen hidden human satellites had been reactivated, eyes once closed, now open and furious. Transmission triangulated. Lau reported. Civilian source, deep inside the outpost. Possibly a sympathizer or whistleblower. Have they responded? Not yet. No sign of distress. No sign of life, either. Elena's jaw tightened. Then we go silent and fast. An elite insertion team launched in drop pods, their paths arcing silently through space. She watched them fall, those streaks of steel against stars, and remembered the names of those lost to silence. It was no longer about revenge. It was about assurance that the Serathi would never again hold a match over the throat of a sleeping world. Inside the asteroid, her soldiers found nothing organic. The hallways were clean, humming softly. No guards. No resistance, just long corridors of memory, carved in glass and alloy. They reached the broadcast chamber. The transmitter was still warm. The Serathi who sent the message lay beside it, dead, spine fractured, eyes dimmed. But the message had been real. Behind the body, a wall of data flickered. Command logs, hidden memos, military redeployments. All recent, all damning. The Serathi peace faction had been overthrown. Their offers of atonement were not a strategy. They were a stalling tactic. The old guard had returned, more cautious, more subtle. While envoys wept, generals sharpened their blades. Download everything. Elena ordered full recall, burn the data trail. She stood at the edge of decision that no longer felt like a choice. Back on the bridge, the confirmation came. The signal was authentic, the evidence irrefutable. A mass mobilization was underway deep in Serathi space. Ships, soldiers, weapons that hadn't been seen since the first silence. Only now, they were cloaked beneath diplomatic immunity and wrapped in the language of peace. Loudon asked a question. He saw it in her eyes before she spoke. Order the fleet to advance. But no prelude, Elena said. No warning. They forfeited mercy today. They made our graves the foundation of their lies. Within hours, the outermost Serathi defense grid fell. Precision strikes. No civilian centers. Just their hidden war machine, exposed and eradicated. Planetary defense AI were too slow to react. Their trust in the peace accords had dulled their reflexes. Serathi Command issued a protest. Elena replied with silence. At Sereness orbital ring, the Serathi fleet attempted to form a blockade. It lasted less than 7 minutes. Gloria Noctis led the charge, her particle lances shearing through command frigates like light through water. The human war machine had evolved, too, and it had not forgotten what loss taught it. Amid the chaos, a new voice emerged, high, resonant, authoritative, the speaker of stone. She transmitted a direct message to Elena's bridge. If you continue, you will break the spine of our kind, not just the war makers. All of us. Is that what memory demands? Elena approached the console and keyed in a visual response. The speaker's ancient face appeared, lines of age fracturing her translucent skin. Our memory, Elena said, was carved in children's bones. There are those among us who still carry sorrow. Then let them carry it home, Elena answered. We offered peace once. You returned it in fire. And now you return fire for fire. No, she said. We return silence for silence. The transmission cut. On the surface of Saren, human ground teams disabled weapon silos and orbital uplinks. They didn't torch cities. They didn't desecrate civilian zones. But they made sure the Serathi war machine could never rise again. The message was not conquest. It was finality. By dusk, the skies above Saren were filled with smoke and wreckage, but beneath it, life remained, unharmed, left behind deliberately. Elena stood in her quarters at night, watching the stars flicker beyond the viewport. Lau entered without a word, holding a datapad. It's done, he said. No, she replied quietly. It's just over. He lingered in the silence, unsure whether it was grief or relief that filled the space between them. History will judge us, he said. Elena didn't look away from the stars. History forgot the first slaughter. I only made sure it won't forget the second. Behind her, the lights of Earth's fleet dimmed as they turned for a home, battle-worn, triumphant, and silent. Ask ChatGPT.